It's time we mix some drums. Okay, welcome back everyone to the channel. Today we're gonna be mixing some drums. The track we're gonna be using as an example today is called Remedy by Valentin. And let's check just the drums on its own, with and without processing, to see how we started and where we ended. Okay, this is my entire drum bus right here, and just to give you an idea, there's nothing on my mixed bus. It's only some limiting with just a tiny bit of compression and some gain, so it sounds louder. Okay, if you know me by now, you know I always start with the EQ to clean up everything. In this case, just a tiny bit of the low end, not much, because we need it, but not many systems can reproduce anything below 30, so I want to keep that headroom for myself. And then just a tiny notch here on 690. Let's see what's this doing. You cannot notice it that much here, but when you start adding all the other processing, it becomes more evident. Okay, so moving on, we have this by Slate. I'm gonna start with my usual console emulation here, doing some saturation mostly. Again, this plugin on its own won't make a huge difference. The idea is when you stack them through all the different instruments, that's when it actually shines in the end. Moving on, we have our first compressor, 1176 style, the blue one. I love this for drums. Let's see what this is doing. Then we're moving on to some EQ, Neve style this time. So this is mostly for coloring and to give a little boost on the 5K area. That's where the click and the attack lives pretty much. So let's see how it sounds with and without. And finally we have the transient shaper. This is to make it a little bit boomy. You can see I'm taking away some of the sustain behind 2K and giving some more attack on the 1K area and above. Let's see how it sounds with and without. Now I know this on its own, it sounds a bit crap, but remember, always mix in context because it's gonna change how you perceive the sound. Okay, moving on to the snare. The one thing that we all love. As usual, EQ to clean up. I always got everything below 100. And then I have two small cuts around 400 and 800, or 675 actually. So right away, we have this again by Slate. So the first plugin here is the actual noise gate. That's to tame the bleeding from the cymbals and the toms and the kick. Now, as you can hear, there is some bleed, especially right after you hit with the snare. We could address that. We could make the gate a lot tighter. But the problem there is if you have any soft hits, then you will drown that out as well. You know, you would check that as well. Then obviously we have some console emulation as well. We start stacking up everything, and then we have the first compressor. This time with a medium attack. Let's see how it sounds with and without. We're going for 5 dB reaction tops when you have several hits. Then we have some EQ, Neve style as well. We're making bigger moves than with the kick. We're boosting as a shelf, the top end. We're boosting the 5K again, more hit, more attack, and then boosting some of the 150. That's a sweet spot for snares as well. Let's see before and after. And then we have this stressor at the end to add some more compression. This helps us make it more punchy and rounder. Right away, we have this plugin by JST, Clipper. We add some clipping, a little bit on parallel, 80%. And this is how it sounds before and after. Okay, and now we have the actual reverb. Obviously, first we clean up the low end, this band here, because it was annoying apparently, and we give it a little shelf. And for reverb, I like using the verbiage. I really love this one for snares on modern metal music. I think it goes really well. So this is how it sounds with and without. Okay, moving on to the toms. As usual, we start with EQ, but this time I decided to use a dynamic one. I'm using F6 by Waves. The reason to use dynamics is because there are two different toms on the same bus, as you can see on the same track here. So the low one has a different EQ per se than the higher tom, especially on this band here, because it's quite resonant. It has a lot of boominess and it has a lot of sustain on the low end. So sometimes I entertain it, sometimes I don't, depending which one is hitting. So that's why we're using dynamic one. Okay, let's see how this is working. So we have this one, which is the boominess. I'm taking that away a little bit. Then we have around 500. And then a little boost as a shelf. Just to give it a little bit more smack. Right after that, we have this one again. And this time we're starting with the transient shaper. The reason for that is because I want to reduce the sustain on the toms first and give it just a tiny bit smack. So let's see the before and after with this one. And we keep stacking up the console emulation, and then we get to the compressor. Again, 1176 Blue with a medium attack. Let's see how it sounds with this. And lastly, we have NIF style EQ, giving it just again a little bit of 5K and around 110-ish. Okay, moving on, we have the hi-hats. Let's see what we have here. EQ to clean up a little bit. On hi-hats, I'm cleaning up quite a bit because they are mostly just top end. I'm going for around 660, almost 700. And then just a tiny dip around 1K and a shelf boost from almost 5K. Let's see how it sounds on its own, with and without this. Right away, we have console emulation again. So we stack it up, and then our first compressor, this time using this stressor. Let's see how it sounds with and without. And then we have some more EQ, more top end. And then we move into the overheads. So let's see, what are we doing here? First, the EQ around 100. We deep around 400. Let's see what this is doing. And then a tiny notch around 8K. Let's see how it sounds without it. And then we're moving on to more of pretty much similar to the hi-hat, to be honest. We have console emulation, we have distressor and EQ. Similar settings, to be honest, but not quite the same. So let's see what this is doing. On a little note, I would normally EQ this differently. I would remove pretty much everything up until 800 and do some other moves around here. But this time I decided to leave it because I wanted the bleed from the kick and from the snare to help me shape the sound of the snare and the kick. To be honest, I'm not gonna lie. And then we have the rooms. The rooms, I actually do process them quite similarly, to be honest. My general moves are cutting everything below 100, dipping around 600, and then a little dip around 6K to tame the cymbals. So otherwise they're gonna be really, really shiny. Let's check it out. Let's check it out with this, which is some more console emulation and some distressor to bring it up. Let's try removing this little dip here. Subtle move, but it helps you to not go in depth with the cymbals. Now, the same move I make on these ones, to be honest, just, the EQ, change it ever so slightly. Instead of 600, I'm going around mid 400. And with this one, pretty much the same story, just a tiny bit lower, but always cutting around 6K. Okay, now that we've seen all the processing on the individual shelves and overheads and cymbals, let's do a quick before and after before we move into the drum bus. Now, let's see what we have in this case. First, we have this Pultec emulation by Black Rooster. What we're doing is we are boosting some of the 60. We are not doing the full Pultec move because we're boosting around half 3 and reducing, attenuating by 2. Then we're boosting 5K by 3. We're not attenuating anything. We are trimming though. Let's see how it sounds with and without. And then we have the last stack of the console emulation, and we have some distressor. This time we're doing some parallel compression. This is just to bring up the attack of the different shells. To be honest, let's see how it sounds with and without. Again, it's not a massive difference, but it's there and it sounds amazing. Now let's see everything in context. So as you can see, we're not doing that much, we're not doing anything crazy, but still sounding big, sounding huge, sounding massive, without the need to use any sample this time. Okay, I really hope you enjoyed this video on how to mix modern metal drums. If you did, please don't forget to subscribe and like and leave me a comment on what would you like to hear next. See you on the next video.